missing Iowa college student Molly Tibbetts. A neighbor exclusively telling Fox News that she saw a suspicious black SUV slowly circling the neighborhood where Tibbetts' boyfriend lives and where she was staying the night that she vanished.
So far, the FBI has not commented on that, but they have questioned Iowa hog farmer Wayne Cheney for a third time. He lives just miles away from where Tibbetts was last seen. Cheney claims he does not know Molly. He's allowed police to search his property and personal phone, but refused to take a polygraph test. Molly disappeared nearly 3 weeks ago after going for a run in Brooklyn, Iowa. Rescuers scouring through rubble at this hour in search of survivors after a massive earthquake rocks Indonesia. The pure panic caught on camera. At least 91 people are dead, with hundreds more injured after the magnitude 7 quake hit Lombok Island right next to Bali. It comes just a week after another earthquake killed 16 people in the same part of the island nation.
20 people are behind bars this morning after violent clashes erupt between two groups of protesters in Berkeley, California. Got really nasty. Police arriving in riot gear as the far right-wing group No to Marxism and their rally was countered by the far leftist group Stop the Hate and their rally. Dozens of weapons, including rocks, dowels, and poles, were confiscated. Look at all that. 3 people suffered injuries after some type of explosives were thrown. No police officers were hurt after all of this. 4 Antifa protesters are heading to court after demonstrations turned violent in Portland, Oregon. Those Antifa protesters are accused of illegally using weapons, harassment, and assault during a clash with counter-protesters, and the city's police chief is now calling for an investigation into reports of police officers using excessive force.
Countdown to a possible sit-down. The Trump legal team closer to a decision on whether the president will meet with special counsel Robert Mueller.
Griff Jenkins is live in Washington with the latest on this 16-month-long Russia probe and where we're at right now. Hey, Griff.
Hey, Rob and Jillian, good morning. You know, according to the president's legal team, a decision could come in the next week. The president has made it clear that he wants to do an interview, but his legal team has concerns, and their inclination at this point is to not let the president sit down with Mueller. The two sides are continuing to negotiate over the number and scope of questions. One thing's very clear, and that is the president's frustration over the investigation. He raised eyebrows with this tweet yesterday, denying any knowledge of the 2016 Trump Tower meeting. He tweeted, "Fake news reporting, a complete fabrication that I am concerned about. The meeting my wonderful son Donald had in Trump Tower. This was a meeting to get information on an opponent, totally legal and done all the time in politics, and it went nowhere. I did not know about it." The tweet contradicts statements made last year by the president's attorney, Jay Sekulow, who had this to say.
I had bad information at that time. I made a mistake in my statement. I've talked about that before. That happens when you have cases like this. I think it's very important to point out that in a situation like this, you have, over time, facts develop. That's what investigations do.
Meanwhile, across the aisle, Democrats continue to accuse the president of collusion.
As long as the Russians interfere on Donald Trump's side in the midterms, Vladimir Putin can count on the president to never call him out. I think there's plenty of evidence of collusion or conspiracy in plain sight.
Now, the president is in Bedminster, New Jersey, on what the White House is calling a working vacation. He has no public events, so we may not hear anything unless it comes via Twitter. But the negotiations continue, so this will, I guess, eventually give us an answer, but it ain't coming right now. Rob, Jillian?
Okay, Griff, thank you so much. The Trump administration ready to reimpose sanctions on Iran. The penalties will go into effect just after midnight. They'll be the first since the Obama-era nuclear deal was scrapped. Don Bramer is a former intelligence officer and Iraq War veteran. He explained earlier that these sanctions could ruin Iran's already struggling economy.
If you look at the things that affect the Iranian people, it's automotive parts. You know, if the parts to get their trucks and their businesses working are too expensive for the Iranian people to afford, their businesses, their economies cripple.
President Trump says he is willing to meet with the Iranian president, Hassan Rouhani, to lay out groundwork for a better nuclear deal. The sanctions come as the value of the Iranian dollar is at a record low.
6 people have been arrested in Venezuela after an alleged drone attack on President Maduro. New video has emerged of what Maduro has called an assassination attempt. Look at that. Drones reportedly packed with explosives, exploding as Maduro spoke during a military parade in the socialist country. He later said a group of terrorists and assassins were detained. Some firefighters on the ground said the blast was merely a gas explosion at a nearby apartment building.
Candidates making their final pitch to voters before tomorrow's special election in Ohio, and polls showing a dead heat between GOP State Senator Troy Balderson and Democrat Danny O'Connor in a historically Republican district. President Trump rallying for Balderson in the Buckeye State, hoping to push him across tomorrow's finish line. We'll see.
How about it? Chase Elliott and his pit crew go crazy after his first career NASCAR win.
The crowd roars. They're going to see for the first time Chase Elliott win in the Monster Energy Cup Series.
But the celebration took a detour when Elliott ran out of gas. So teammate Jimmy Johnson had his back, pushing Elliott into the victory lane.
Look at
It's awesome.
All right, honoring our nation's heroes, the final team of runners making it to the finish line at Arlington National Cemetery for the annual Run for the Fallen. The cross-country trek started at Fort Irwin Army Base between California and Nevada back in April. It's a long way. Around 500 runners participated in the 19-state, 6,000-mile relay to honor the Americans who have died to protect this country.
8 minutes after the hour right now, and I don't know about you, but it has been hot out here the last couple of days, and Adam Klotz is live in the studio, or is it going to let up at all anytime soon?
I could have just slept in this morning. I heard you guys say it's just going to be hot all day. That pretty much sums it up. I could have just stayed at home. And yeah, I mean, it's already really warm there across the country. Close to 100 degrees in Phoenix already this morning.
Wow.
We're sitting right around 80 degrees here in New York City. It is going to be hot all day long, and these are the early morning temperatures before it's all said and done. A lot of spots running up into the 90s or even warmer than that. 92 degrees in New York City, 86 degrees in Chicago, close to 100 in Kansas City. And look at Phoenix, 114 today. It's really a lot of this heat. The extreme heat is going to be in the desert Southwest, and that's something we're going to have to pay attention to the next couple of days. From 114 running all the way up the coast to California, temperatures getting up close to triple digits. And it does get into the triple digits at least the next couple of days. 106 degrees in Redding, California for you tomorrow. That's an area where they've been battling wildfires. It's staying incredibly dry in that region, staying hot for us on Wednesday as well. So that heat's going to be sticking around. That's why we see the heat watches and warnings all across the desert Southwest here the next couple of days. Triple digits won't be a surprise. The other big story folks will be paying attention to a little bit farther west. This is a Hurricane Hector. This is going to be running south of Hawaii here in the next couple of days. It does look as though it stays far enough south that it's not going to be a huge impact. There's just a little shift to the north, and they'll notice it. So that's one we'll be paying attention to here the next couple of days, guys.
That time.
All right.
Thank you. 120 degrees in Death Valley. That's
I mean, it
insane.
is Death Valley.
That's what I got out of all that.
Cool,
Adam,
comfortable climate. Yeah. All right, Adam, thanks. 10 minutes after the hour, Chicago reeling after one of the most violent weekends in the city's history. 10 people just confirmed dead, dozens more shot, just days after thousands of protesters marched for peace. Fox News political analyst and Chicago native Gianno Caldwell says Mayor Rahm Emanuel needs to go, and he joins us next.
Do you want to get paid to eat Nutella while living in Italy?
Yes.
Sounds fascinating. The dream job that just opened up. We're going to tell you about it. Chicago residents reeling this morning after one of the bloodiest weekends in the city's history.
63 people shot from Friday until Sunday in Chicago, 10 of them now dead. The police department determined to keep fighting.
What I promise you is that we won't be defeated. I mean, I promise this city that we won't be defeated. We won't be overrun by that small group, that small element that's committing these reckless acts. We will not. I promise you that we will not be defeated.
A new behavioral therapy is trying to change the mindset of the city's youth and showing promising results. Gianno Caldwell is a Chicago native and Fox News political analyst. He joins us now. And Gianno, I mean, I know that every time we talk to you, you're emotional about this. I know that it really gets to your heart. You were born and raised there. You see a weekend like this. You see these numbers. What on earth are you thinking this morning?
You know what? I just heard the police officer's words, and he said, this is a small element. I'm sorry, sir. This is a national crisis. This is a genocide, which in what we're seeing every day, basically in the city of Chicago. Rahm Emanuel has been mayor since 2011, and since 2011, he's been nothing more than a failure. I mean, at this particular point, what we've seen from Rahm Emanuel is deaths, higher taxes, and sanctuary for everyone but the African Americans that are bleeding in the streets of Chicago. This is problematic on every level, and when I hear the words from that leader, it says that he doesn't understand the real crisis that is at root, where people fear leaving their houses on a daily basis.
What needs to change? What does the mayor need to do, or the next mayor need to do, to fix this problem?
Well, the mayor has obviously shown that he can't do anything. His inaction has shown that he's not a one that cares, to me, in my opinion, about the people of the city. Yeah. But here's the thing. Last week, during a protest that I believe was a Fox News exclusive, where we had a state representative who's a senior Democrat in the state of Illinois, LaShawn Ford, came forward and said he's willing to work with the president of the United States. President Trump has offered on many occasions to help the city of Chicago, and one of the things that we continue to hear is Democrats don't want President Trump in Chicago, so he can't do anything about it. Well, we've seen a change. We got a change agent. This is someone that I've known for many years, and one who actually cares about his community, and one who lives in a community, resides over a community that's impacted by the violence at a higher proportion than a lot of Chicago sees. So, yeah, we talk about solutions. We got a leader that's willing to work with the president of the United States. That's a solution. That's where we can get community leaders together who are willing to talk about some solutions that we can that brings about actual change to stop the carnage.
But Gianno, is there also something that can be done where perhaps the residents of Chicago aren't waiting for something to change from the top down, where they can do it themselves, where you can help influence the younger generations, where you can help change the mindsets and understand that this is not okay?
Yeah, of course there is. And I think one of the things is we got to stop this culture of silence, whereas you know that there's gang activity going on, whereas you know who the shooter was, and you refuse to say anything. That's something that needs to happen, because at this point, and especially when I grew up in the city of Chicago, that violence impacted those that were actually involved in a life. Whether it be you were in a gang or you hung out with gang members, you can possibly be a target. However, in this situation now, you can be an infant and be a target, and that's problematic on every level. That's why I say this is a national crisis, and for those who don't recognize it as that,
well, Gianno, these anti-violence ideas that they've come up with here, they have one of them that promises an 84% success rate at this point, trying to change the mentality of these mostly young men that are involved in these crimes and try to fix what's going on in their minds. Is this the way to fix this, or does the city just need stricter penalties for anybody caught with a gun? Do they need more harsher penalties for crime? What do you think? Well,
there's absolutely necessities to have harsher penalties, 100%. Gun control hasn't been effective, as one would say. I know that's usually the liberal talking point. We need greater gun control. Well, Chicago has the most comprehensive gun control laws on the books. I do believe that when it comes to youth, having programs in place that would prevent the violent behavior or teach them not to fall into that trap, those are important. But it's not just a one-item solution. There's going to be a multi-pronged solution in order to prevent this from moving forward. So to Jillian's point, what can we do now? We have to stop the culture of silence, and definitely tougher penalties are necessary. But certainly this is a community effort, because this is a national crisis.
Gianno, if you could fix it
Well, the president is calling out California environmental laws in the wake of the deadly wildfires. The president tweeted, "California wildfires are being magnified and made so much worse by the bad environmental laws, which aren't allowing massive amounts of readily available water to be properly utilized. It is being diverted into the Pacific Ocean. Must also tree clear to stop fire spreading." The president approved a disaster declaring for Shasta County, where the Carr Fire has killed at least 7 people near Redding. Parts of Yosemite National Park are indefinitely closed as more than a dozen fires burn in hot California.
Nearly $5 million in taxpayer money possibly blown away in the New York state. 4 of the 5 nearly brand new windmills built off a highway are broken, according to the Buffalo News. The highway spokesperson says they are waiting for replacement parts. The only problem is the manufacturer doesn't make them anymore. The state doesn't know when or if the windmills will be up and running. A lot of money there.
Millions of Americans no longer dependent on food stamps.
Tracy Grosko from our sister network, Fox Business, here with the brand new numbers. Good morning, Tracy.
Good morning. Yes, these are new numbers from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They're saying that 2.8 million people have dropped off of food stamps. This is, of course, part of the continuing downward trend that we are seeing, but also as the Trump administration attempts to reform the program, both at the federal and the state levels. We can also point to the improving economy as a reason why we are seeing these numbers go down.
Okay. Here's a question. Is Nutella better than chocolate?
With chocolate?
Is that a trick question?
Good?
That's good. That's a question. Well, you have a Nutella story here, Tracy.
Well, yes. So the Ferrero Company,
I just pose the question so we can ponder it while you tell us the story.
I really had to think about it.
The Ferrero Company, that's the maker of Nutella and Ferrero Rocher chocolates. They are looking for taste testers, paid taste testers. Now, according to Italian reports, this is the first time that they are ever opening this job up to non-professionals. But you're going to have to pack your suitcase if you are interested in this job because you'll have to move to the company's headquarters in Alba, Italy. Doesn't sound like a bad deal there.
No, it doesn't.
But this is a part-time position. As I mentioned, they want average consumers. They're not looking for professional taste testers. Sign me up.
You have to pay people for that? Are you kidding me?
That's a job. That's a great job. Get paid to eat Nutella and new chocolate products.
I'd pay to do it. Yeah. Tracy, thank you so much.
I don't think you can compare Nutella and chocolate. I'm still thinking about this now.
It's a tough question.
Hazelnut.
I think about it all the time. 25 minutes after the hour, a New York Times op-ed sounding the alarm about kids attending Trump rallies, calling it heartbreaking that they are exposed to anger. So does that really send the right message? RNC spokesperson Kayleigh McEnany and Democratic strategist Chuck Rocha here to debate that. Coming up.
Police officers save a man trapped inside a burning car. The dramatic moments caught on camera. Good Monday morning to you and welcome back. Shocking new details about the man accused of shooting a Colorado cop in the head last week. We've now learned Karar Kamizi is an Iraqi immigrant with a long criminal history. Despite previous charges of drunk driving, trespassing, and criminal extortion, he somehow managed to avoid deportation. Former Nashville police officer Vincent Hill weighed in earlier.
Here we are yet again dealing with another brother in blue who was shot in the head like a sheep in a slaughterhouse because of this ideology that the left is preaching. This entire thing could have been prevented had we had tougher immigration laws.
Colorado Springs officer Jem Duzel remains in critical condition. Investigators are looking into Islamic extremism after 11 children were rescued from a filthy compound in New Mexico. The kids between the ages of 1 and 15 were removed after an armed standoff with one of the men who stayed there. The 39-year-old, now behind bars, was originally wanted for kidnapping his 3-year-old son from Georgia. That child has not been found. Another man has also been arrested. Conditions at the remote property compared to a third world country. The sheriff said the FBI believes the men had extreme Islamic beliefs. President Trump's legal team inching closer to a decision on whether or not the president will sit down with special counsel Robert Mueller. This as his attorney fires back after a mix-up regarding Donald Trump Jr.'s meeting with several Russians at Trump Tower who claimed to have dirt on Hillary Clinton. Jay Sekulow had denied the president and a role in drafting a response to that 2016 meeting. He now says he made a mistake after President Trump tweeted about it yesterday.
I had bad information at that time. I made a mistake in my statement. I've talked about that before. That happens when you have cases like this. I think it's very important to point out that in a situation like this, you have, over time, facts develop. That's what investigations do. I agree to go.
As for the Mueller meeting, Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani says a decision will be made by this Sunday. National Security Advisor John Bolton cautiously optimistic that North Korea will denuclearize, but he is now acknowledging that Kim Jong-un could go back on his word.
There's nobody in this administration starry-eyed about the prospects of North Korea actually denuclearizing. But I think what's going on now is that the president is giving Kim Jong-un a master class in how to hold a door open for somebody.
Recent evidence suggests North Korea has not stopped making nuclear weapons, despite an agreement between President Trump and Kim Jong-un during their Singapore summit. Rob?
All right, kids attending the president's rallies makes a New York Times photographer despondent. In an op-ed, Damon Winter writes, "It had been a long journey covering the campaign, and I remember being exhausted by the anger I experienced. In those final weeks, I remember being heartbroken that children were exposed to this anger, were learning from it and participating in it." But kids that are going to the rallies are telling a different story.
Donald Trump, I've been supporting him since the 2016 election, and I just came to support and came out here.
He's building the wall which stops illegal immigration, which is great.
I want to see that he is best president of America.
All right, here to weigh in, our panel, RNC spokesperson Kayleigh McEnany, and with the hat on this morning, Democratic strategist Chuck Rocha. Guys, thanks so much for coming on. Kayleigh, I want to start with you. Reading the op-ed, it seemed a bit dramatic, I would say, the concerns that he had.
Yeah, it was rife with hyperbole and exaggeration, there's no doubt. And the New York Times, once again, exposes their elitism. And that's what this article was. It was a leftist elite deriding and decrying Trump rallies. He literally says in the piece that he has to take photographs to remind himself of the humanity of Trump voters. He then talks about the press being siphoned off into cages. That is so false. The press is always siphoned off at rallies, not in cages. And if he was so concerned about that, why not be concerned when Hillary roped them off, literally roped them off, and there's video of it. So complete exaggeration, complete elitism, and it was a ridiculous op-ed.
What'd you make, Chuck? What'd you make of that article?
Well, I think politics is an emotional sport. I also think Kelly's got a lot of big words that I don't understand. But what I do understand is this, that there's a lot of emotion in politics. If you want to take your kids to a rally, you have every right to do that. Isn't it the right thing to do at this particular time with this particular campaign? That's up to you as a parent. Let me take me, for example. I live with two twin-year-old grandbabies, and I'm very emotional. I've been even known to punch a dude when he makes the wrong decision at me. So what I do is I take my phone when somebody calls me about politics, and I step outside because the things I know I'm going to say, I don't want them twin babies hearing because I know they're going to repeat it.
Kayleigh, he makes a good point that this is not really a great time for kids to be introduced to politics. The political situation in this country is terrible right now. Maybe don't take them to the Trump rally. Maybe don't let them watch some of the things that they see on TV and some of the things that you read, because there's a lot of craziness on both sides of the aisle right now. I mean, the world is on fire every day if you watch some news stations.
Well, look, I wouldn't take them to a Maxine Waters rally where there's literally encouragement of violent protest against Trump officials, or at least that's how I perceived her statement. But, you know, the kids that you played at the beginning of this segment, I thought it was really interesting to hear, you know, a young person articulate, you know, pretty good arguments against illegal immigration. A lot of these kids walk away having learned something, having been engaged in civics and the political process in a way that maybe they hadn't before. I've been to Trump rallies. As President Trump says, there's a lot of love in the room. I don't agree with this characterization at all. I think it's a good time for kids to learn and be engaged because of this president.
Chuck, on your side, a lot of people say that the president promotes divisiveness and in some cases violence. But can't you also argue the exact same thing? The Democrats and the far left and some in the media have made it to the point where you can't even wear a Make America Great Again hat without being assaulted. I mean, that is crazy.
Again, I am the one who is doing that. I will tell you that I'm an emotional being, and I've said things I regret saying. I've been at that rally in the heat of the moment and said some pretty visceral things at the microphone. It's up to you as a parent whether you want to drag your baby to that visceralness or not. That's what's wrong with our politics overall, is all of this hatred amongst each other. People want to make this country everything that it can be, and we can do without talking down to each other.
Yeah. Kayleigh, you know, this op-ed writer, this photographer for the Times, doesn't want kids to go to a Trump rally and to be exposed to, I guess, conservative ideals. It is interesting, though, that in schools these days, you pretty much are only exposed to liberal ideas. So where are you supposed to get the other side if you're a kid?
That's exactly right. You know, this editor or this photographer is a liberal snowflake, and any exposure to conservative ideas, to Republican ideas, to him is vitriolic. You're exactly right. Our schools are rife with leftist ideology. There's no doubt about that. Academia, the media, in most cases. So you're right. You know, conservatism shouldn't be characterized as vitriolic, but nevertheless, that's how the New York Times sees it.
Well, Rob, I would go on to say that I grew up in East Texas, and there ain't no liberalness around my school in East Texas, in Tyler, Texas, where I come from. They won't even let you watch MSNBC over there. So I wouldn't say this rife with liberalism everywhere you go.
That's a fair statement. That is a fair statement. All right, guys, thanks so much for coming on this morning. Maybe let the kids just watch cartoons.
I like the cartoons.
Thanks, Rob.
All right. Guys, thanks.
He had the biggest smile on his face when he said that. It is 37 minutes after the hour. Campus craziness taken to another level. Thousands of dollars put toward fighting social injustices. But you won't believe who's footing the bill.
And censoring conservatives. Again, Twitter backtracking after suspending the account of Candace Owens. Carly Shimkus here to show us the double standard that is now being called out.
Don't tell anyone, no, you'll be just another regret. My dirty little secret. Get
Look at the things that police have to do every day. Unbelievable. Dramatic body camera video shows police officers saving an unconscious man inside a burning car after it crashed into a pole in Atlanta. One officer running over with a fire extinguisher to put out the flames. He then tried prying the door open when the fire wouldn't go out. The man inside the car is going to be okay. His life saved. The officer walked away with some minor scrapes. This is what our police do every day.
Well, he went to the city of brotherly love to support local law enforcement, but he left with 4 slashed tires. Scott Pressler says while he was at a Back the Blue rally in Philadelphia, someone trashed his car. He thinks it's no coincidence. He's pro-police and has a Trump bumper sticker. He's calling out Philadelphia's anti-ICE mayor on Twitter, writing, quote, "Today I went to Philly, the city of brotherly love, to rally in support of your police. When I returned to my car, all 4 tires were slashed. How does this inspire people to move to your anti-police sanctuary city?" Now, so far, we haven't seen any response from the mayor.
Not doubt we will.
Censoring conservatives yet again. Twitter backtracking after suspending the account of Candace Owens for doing exactly what a liberal did.
Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7, Sirius XM 115, here with the apology, another apology from the social media site. Hey, Carly.
Hey, good morning, guys. So the New York Times recently came under fire for hiring Sarah Jeong. She's a journalist who has posted about her hatred for white people on Twitter. Now, on Saturday, Candace Owens quoted Jeong's tweets, but replaced the word white with Jewish and black. Twitter suspended Candace Owens' account, but they did not suspend Jeong's account when she posted her racially charged tweets. The company now saying they made a mistake, but Candace Owens said that she was trying to prove a point about a racial double standard. Take a listen.
You should not be able to tweet about any race or any group that you want them canceled, that they should live underground, and that you enjoy harassing them. That is the point in all of this. You know, we should not be allowed to be racist towards any group. Obviously understood that it
So like I said, the Twitter now apologizing, saying they made an error. The company made an error, and this situation sparking a lot of reaction online. Veritas says Twitter sure does make a lot of mistakes when it comes to accounts held by conservatives. And Lori on Twitter also saying, glad Twitter saw the error of its ways. Zhang, by the way, says that her anti-white tweets were intended to be satire.
Well, the 2020 rumors continue.
They sure do. So former Vice President Joe Biden, he is the early favorite to take on President Trump in 2020. But Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren is sparking speculation over whether she wants to run for president as well after making this stump-style speech. Take a listen.
It won't be easy. We're going to have to fight uphill. But me, I'm going up that hill, and I hope you are too.
Warren also reportedly told the crowd that she has never been afraid to be an underdog. A lot of people talking about this morning. Jackie says a sure win for Trump if she does. Another Twitter user writes, no thanks, Liz, move over and let others take the stage. So a little bit of a mixed reaction, a little mixed bag there, if you will.
Yeah, this is a great story here. I love this video.
This is great. A Massachusetts police officer greeted with a familiar voice after making his final radio call before retirement. His son flying across the country to be a part of his final send-off. Take a listen.
On this day, after 32.5 years of service, my father, Southbridge Police Officer Dwayne Ledoux, is retiring, a man who has sacrificed so much of his time for all of us. Dad, you are officially Code 5.
It doesn't get any better than that. That's Officer Dwayne Ledoux of the Southbridge, Massachusetts Police Department getting emotional when he hears his son's voice. He didn't know that his son was coming home for that. How great is that?
So special.
You can hear him after that. He just kind of almost breaks into tears.
I know. And speaking of tears, I was trying to not cry off my eye makeup when I was watching that at my desk upstairs.
I know.
Woo! It is a good one.
Definitely a tearjerker. Thank you, Carly.
Thanks a lot.
45 minutes after the hour, mortgage mess. Hundreds of people lose their homes because of a computer glitch. Our next guest has worked in finance for more than a decade and says it's time for Wells Fargo to pay the price.
But first, let's check in with Steve Doocy to see what's coming up on this Monday edition of Fox and Friends. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Jillian, and Rob as well. Good morning to you. Coming up on Fox and Friends just about 14 minutes from right now, Dan Bongino is going to be joining us from Florida to talk about the crazy epidemic of shootings in Chicago. Over 60 people were shot since Friday. What is going on there? We're going to talk to him about that. Ted Williams on the case of the missing Molly Tibbetts out in Iowa. Michael Waltz and Stuart Varney about the news of the day. We've got a busy 3 hours, kicks off just about 14 minutes right here. Rob and Jillian on the channel. Everybody trusts for their morning news. Fox News Channel.
I love that voice. You should do the whole 3 hours with that voice.
I think I'd get tired of that after a while. Then it would shift into a pirate voice, matey. Just say
we gotta go. We'll be right back. Steve, thanks.
College jobs include bookstore cashier or maybe tour guide, but UCLA is paying students to combat social injustice. The school paying $13 an hour to 18 students to have conversations about race relations and different cultures. The program is funded through the mandatory student service fee, which costs each student more than $1,000 a year.
As more and more states legalize marijuana, there's about to be a new way to crack down on stoned drivers. A California company claims that it has made a marijuana breathalyzer. Hound Labs says its device can accurately detect whether a person has smoked pot in the last 2 hours. A few police departments plan to start testing it this fall.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
Mortgage mess. Wells Fargo now admitting that a computer glitch caused hundreds of people to lose their homes.
The glitch denying mortgage modifications to 625 customers despite their qualifying for the relief. So how on earth does something like this happen? How do you lose your home after a glitch? Here now to weigh in is financial analyst Heather Zumaraga. Heather, thanks so much for coming on this morning. It's baffling to think that your home can be lost over something like this.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, this is a systemic failure on Wells Fargo's side across the board. They're saying this is because of computer glitch, and although that may be true, 400 people had their homes foreclosed on between 2010 and 2015. And this is very disturbing. You know, Wells Fargo has a history of fraudulent activity, so it's hard to believe that this was an innocent mistake as a computer glitch when things like this have been happening time and time again, Rob.
Well, you mentioned their history, Wells Fargo history. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of that. Paid $2.1 billion fine over mortgage loans with incorrect income information during housing bubble. Created millions of fake accounts, hit customers with unfair mortgage fees, and Federal Reserve capped assets over consumer abuse. That's a pretty lengthy list there you have from Wells Fargo. Do you know what the company has done to make this right for those 600+ individuals that this happened to?
So they're working on it right now in Wells Fargo Defense. Right now they've issued or are issuing $8 million to help remediate this issue for the people that did lose their homes when they were applying for these loan modifications. Let's say you go to refinance your house and you should have been approved, but you weren't. So they are providing money to those that lost their homes. I don't know if $8 million is enough to cover the damage that 400 people have endured, and 625 should have had those loans approved. But look, this is just out of control. As you mentioned, just 4 or 5 other instances where they were not computer glitches, and this was activity, fraudulent activity like signing your signature to get you car insurance or rack up mortgage fees when you never even agreed to that. There's a big problem here. I work in the financial services industry, but this needs to be addressed.
Heather, you know, I'm a capitalist. I believe there's no better way to run a society, but this is part of the issue that you see when you don't regulate. These banks can get out of control, and you have stuff like this. And the problem is, a bank like Wells Fargo has so much money. So what do? You fine them. Okay, big deal. If they get away with it 4 times out of 5, they're better off just taking the fine and continuing to do it. When are they going to learn that you got to come back with something so harsh that it stops companies like this from just overtly going out there and trying to steal money from their customers, like in some of these other instances that you just mentioned?
Agreed. That's a very tough line to walk, because if you are a free market capitalist and you're not in favor of government regulation of certain industries like the financial industry, but in this case, they are right to step in, the government, and they have to step in. Obviously, the fines, fining them is not, that's not getting it done, Rob. So you're right. The rule of law has to be enforced. Someone needs to go to jail. The people that did this are crooks. And I have to say, not across the board. It's too bad that a few bad actors have ruined it and are casting a dark cloud over the whole financial industry, because there are people that really do want to help you at Wells Fargo. But in this case, they need to catch the crooks, put them in jail. The fines aren't working.
And just a note, we have reached out to Wells Fargo for comment. We have not yet heard back as of this moment. Heather, thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, 54 minutes after the hour, mid-air musical drama. A woman is kicked off of her flight after buying a seat for her $30,000 cello. How the airline is responding this morning.
A fan tries to catch a ball with a bucket of French fries and gravy. Oh, it didn't end well. Yeah, this is going viral. Stay right there.
Somebody bought around, so we're drinking